Now, if it is one thing that President Trump and the Republican Party are super concerned about, it's the threat of terrorism, right? For example, if you talk to some right-wingers, they'll say that terrorism is one of the biggest dangers to America, right? And that we can only fight it if we call it out by its name, right? And that is unless the terrorist happens to be white. Now, look, if you follow Trump and you follow a lot of corporate media, you might notice that this story has not really been talked about. The story of an attempted bombing of a North Carolina airport. Now, here are some of the details, right? Now, last Friday morning at 12:39 a.m., security footage from the Asheville Regional Airport in North Carolina showed a man walking through the front doors wearing black clothing and a black cap. And he was carrying a bag. Based on a review of the video, according to the criminal complaint, the individual walked near the entrance to the terminal, went out of sight, and was then seen departing without the bag. Now, that is very suspicious. Nobody would leave their belongings behind. So, naturally, the people that were on duty, that were watching the cameras, were like, "Oh man, that looks suspicious. We better send for like a bomb sniffing dog or something, just to make sure that this is not a bomb." So, following the administration's protocols, airport security did allow the bomb dog to sniff the bag for explosives, and he signaled to the team the presence of dangerous materials in the bag. Now, those dangerous materials were ammonium nitrate fuel oil. Okay, so that's what they again used to make improvised explosives. Now, of course, after that discovery, the concourse was shut down, the street leading to the airport was shut down, and the bomb was eventually removed and disarmed. Now, what's interesting about ammonium nitrate and fuel oil is that kind of mix has been used in terrorist attacks around the world. And when it comes into contact with flame or another ignition source, it explodes. Now, what's even worse is that they found inside of the bomb sharp nails and bullets. So that would obviously cause a lot of damage to anyone nearby who might not even be that close to the blast. So now authorities also discovered that there was an alarm attached to it that was scheduled to go off at 6 a.m. that morning, just as a fresh round of travelers was scheduled to arrive at the airport. So again, 6 a.m., this bomb filled with shrapnel was going to go off during the most busy part of the morning. Terrorist attack, man. That sounds like terrorism to me. But wait a minute. In order to be terrorism, you have to have a motive, right? Okay. Well, they talked to the man. They captured him. Actually, they were able to trace him through his store rewards card, which is very, very interesting. When he went to go and purchase the materials for this homemade bomb. So they tracked him, they arrested him, and they asked him, okay, well, why did you do it? Well, he said, I was preparing to fight a war on U.S. soil, and this bomb is actually going to be part of that war. So this guy wants to fight a war on U.S. soil, right? And so he set up this airport to do a terrorist attack. There's your motive. I want a war. I want a civil war. So this is terrorism plain as day. That was foiled. Thankfully so. I mean, I'm very glad that they noticed that something was wrong and they investigated and they found this guy. Wonderful. Before he could do any damage, right? Nonetheless, attempted terrorist attack. Now, I'm sure Donald Trump and the Republicans are tweeting about what a wonderful job the authorities did in foiling this terrorist attack, this would-be terrorist attack. No. I mean, check his Twitter. I did. Stuff about Puerto Rico and about how the Navy is 242 years old today. Happy birthday, Navy. All that stuff. And then fake news. Okay. So he's not tweeting about it. And now, of course, you see why. The bomb was placed by a white man named Michael Christopher Estes, who, like I mentioned before, wanted a war on American soil. Again, I would think that would be newsworthy. And you'd think that Republicans would pick up on it and be like, hey, look at that. We were worried about terrorism, and thankfully our trained crews got and stopped this terrorist attack. Go America! Go America! But no, they're not. In fact, there are very few news outlets that actually picked up and ran this story. So, Republicans are not calling this guy out for being an attempted terrorist. We're not thankfully not demonizing other white people, because that would be stupid. And we're not thanking the brave people who thwarted this plot, which we should thank. And again, Trump not talking about it. Now, why is that important? Well, imagine instead of Michael, his name was Muhammad. Do you think that they would be tweeting that? I think everybody knows the answer. Look, what we're doing by presenting the story is, again, I think this is newsworthy, and I think the people who stopped this deserve a lot of credit for being able to stop this. Wonderful. They didn't even have to spy in on Americans to be able to go and stop this. Wonderful. All they had to do was just track his purchases. That makes me wonder why we have a network, the CIA program, that spies in on American citizens. Just saying. But look, what we're looking for here is we're looking for parity, right? And right now, in news coverage, and look, right now, right-wing extremists are more dangerous in America than Muslim extremists, but you don't hear about that. All you hear about is how much more dangerous the Muslims are than anyone else. Now, let me give you some numbers on that. September 12th, 2001, according to a report prepared for Congress by the Government Accountability Office, the number of fatalities caused by domestic violent extremists has ranged from 1 to 49 in a given year. Fatalities resulting from attacks by far right-wing violent extremists have exceeded those caused by radical Islamic violent extremists in 10 of the 15 years, and were the same in 2 of the years since September 12, 2001. Now, what this is saying is that, hey man, look, Islamic extremists, yes, they are a problem. And they do cause attacks, and they do violence, and we need to stop them. Right? We need to track them. We need to figure it out, figure out their plots. We need to stop them and then protect ourselves. But right-wing extremism, domestic right-wing extremism, is even more deadly. Maybe we should also do something about that. We shouldn't ignore radical Islam, of course. That would be stupid to ignore one. But what the administration is doing is they're picking the other one, radical Islamic extremism, and ignoring the right-wing domestic terrorism. Now, you got to ask, too, why isn't Trump talking about this? Why aren't the Republicans talking about this? Why don't you say their name? Why don't you say their name? I mean, if you want to fight terrorism, as they keep saying, well, the president has to identify this by name, right? So why don't you say it? Far right-wing domestic terrorism. You can say radical Islamic terrorism, but you can't say far-right domestic terrorism. Why? Because he's not interested in identifying this as an actual problem, because some of these people might actually be part of his base. I'm not saying the entirety of his base is like this, that there are very few nuts that are in every movement. I mean, look, there have been extremists on all sides. Consider the Catholic extremists who used to do the bombings back in the 90s. Think of what's going on in Myanmar when Buddhists are now butchering the Muslim minority, the Rohingyas. I wouldn't think Buddhists to be violent or extremists, but there are those people. I mean, anybody could be a terrorist. I mean, look at the guy who shot Steve Scalise, right? Loves to bring him up. He was a left-wing extremist and doesn't represent all leftists, just like these, this guy doesn't represent all white people, just like, the bomb or the shooters at Pulse didn't represent all Muslims or gay people, or just like any Islamic extremist doesn't represent all of Islam. This doesn't mean, if you're part of that group, that your beliefs are bad or inherently violent. It just means that some people will do violent acts based on misguided beliefs. Now, this guy, I don't know his beliefs, right? Other than he thought that it's a great idea to start a civil war in America. But what I do know is that that is a political motive. And therefore, according to the definition, he is a terrorist. Now, if Trump and the right wing don't want to say that, then that says more about them than it does about anything else. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to support truly independent progressive media, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/TYTNation.